Wacko Jacko, welcome.
Welcome. Back on the Balance Experience podcast.
Oh, yeah.
We are back.
I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful day today, and we have a wonderful guest that we've
You're going to say beautiful.
A beautiful guest.
He's both.
He's beautiful and
he's beautiful, wonderful. He's like a butterfly.
He is.
Stings like a butterfly. No, stings like a...
I evolved
floats,
like a butterfly.
Floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee. Scotty Wilson. G'day, Scotty.
How are we?
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I
Not a
appreciate
problem,
it.
mate. Good to have you.
It's going to be... look, we've had many chats over the years. Like you said just before, Scott, off the air. We met each other in Feb 2015.
That is correct.
And
I didn't want to meet you, to be honest.
Well, no one does. but then when they do...
Can't get rid of him.
To me, Scott, you are a very inspiring person because you've been able to accomplish quite a lot in a very short window of time. And I think there are very few that are true athletes, and you, I must say, I've treated a lot of wannabes, and I've treated a lot of people that have tried and failed, and you have not failed. You have most definitely done well. And I definitely think that whatever you kind of pick up from an athletic sense turns to gold. And I've also had the pleasure of knowing you through some trials and tribulations within your career and within your life experience. And I'm really interested to see what some of the perspectives you've had and developed over those years. But Scott, I'm very proud to have you on.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate those kind words.
Yeah, I think the thing that jumps out to me just before we were sort of planning out, what we're going to talk about as we do before podcasts, and I guess what jumps out to me, mate, is the many sports you've played and the success you've had over a fairly long period of time, but in different sports and different avenues, which is really cool. I think to kick us off, where does your story begin, mate?
So, as you can tell with my accent, I'm not from Australia. I was actually born in Germany. My parents are Scottish. I grew up in the British Army from birth till I was 13. Coming from an army background, physical capabilities is placed highly up on the ladder. So throughout school, sports was a massive part of my life.
What do you mean you grew up in the British Army?
Grew up as a pad brat, as a kid. My parents were... My dad was a soldier. My mother worked for the army in some contingent.
So you grew up in the army?
Grew up in the army, not as a soldier, but as a child. I was in a setting or a social setting which was in a occupied country, essentially, from World War II. And despite having good relationships with the Germans and having German friends, it was in a very isolated community. You're on an island, essentially. Even though you can go out and communicate with the Germans, and I did have German friends growing up, you are in your own little world, essentially, your own little bubble. So that's how I would describe growing up.
And that was until you were 13 years old?
Yep, so...
Right.
And moving around a lot.
From birth?
From birth, yeah. So born in a place called Vegburg, and I must have lived in 5 different towns and cities in Germany by the time I was 13.
Right.
So moving around a lot has also been a common theme in my life.
Yeah.
0 to 13 around Germany, from 13 till 18 in Scotland, and then moved to Australia when I was about 19 years old.
Crazy. So growing up
That's one hell of a start to your life.
Yeah. So growing up with a father and mother who were in the Defence Force, was there like an element of like I don't know if militant is the word, but like was your upbringing sort of like that?
My dad is an authoritarian, is what I would describe as him. And talking prior to the podcast on like having issues and things coming up, my dad's is a hard ass, and I take a lot after my dad. I'm very similar to my dad in a way.
Sure.
And definitely had a very authoritative or very like top down upbringing. It wasn't very touchy feely and being aware of your emotions. It was do as I say, not as I do, sort of upbringing.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which has definitely bled into my coaching style.
Right. Okay. I understand. So
a few things. Yeah.
So you're going, okay.
Like I didn't know and if you did tell me this, is maybe I was focused and I've missed it. But in your first 13 years, did you actually have much connection with your family? Like,
we've got a pretty solid family unit. Like, I talk to my mum every week. My dad is here and there. We're not very. He has a much better relationship with my brother.
Okay.
But I definitely am connected to my brother and my mother. I call them once a week, FaceTime. My brother lives in Scotland. My mum and dad live in Newcastle. So we had a very close.
Sydney.
Newcastle, Australia.
Yeah.
We had a very good.
Australia,
we had a very. We had a solid family unit. Like, we always had family dinners together. That my parents have like the typical. I had the typical upbringing, other than the fact that I was in a foreign country and didn't have cousins and other close family.
So it's
relatives
isolated,
around.
but you still had plenty of family time.
Yeah,
and you went to school.
Went to school in a British Army school, so English curriculum or England's curriculum.
With that upbringing, was there an option to not be athletic or be an athlete?
There was lots of kids who were not gifted, but the kids who were gifted usually were put on a bit of a pedestal. I played soccer pretty well. I was always the captain and the forward, always scoring goals, and I was always like a big part of my childhood, if I think back. But there definitely were kids who were not athletic and did other things. But for me, like, it was a place of pride almost to be like an athletic kid in an army background or in an army community, because again, it's just put on a pedestal. Athleticism is fostered very well in those sort of environments.
Of course, yeah. So it sounds like the first 13 years of your life, like you said, like athleticism, strength, whatever it might be, physical attributes were important to your upbringing. When did sport begin, per se? So you said soccer was your first sport?
So I actually hate sport.
Okay.
In a weird way. I love being a participant.
That shocks me. Yeah. Okay.
I'm a participant. I enjoy the physical aspect of sport, but I hate the social aspect or supporting a team. I don't watch football. I don't watch things.
Right.
I just enjoyed the actual
doing of it.
Being involved. Fair enough.
Originally, actually, I rollerbladed earlier on. I think my brother was, I would have been about 4 or 5 in Paderborn, and my brother, and that was skating.
Raced on rollerblades?
No, like aggressive inline skating, so skate parks, flips
mad.
And grinds and all that sort of stuff.
Cool.
At
the age of 4.
That was about 4. I remember having K2 roller skates.
There's no other choice for Scott except to be an athlete.
Well, my brother's 4 years older than me, so everything my brother did, I emulated or copied, other than playing soccer. My earlier memories on like weekends were going and watch my brother play football. I wouldn't watch football. I would go and discover, like, I don't know, riverbeds and climb through trees and be like George of the Jungle. Really like gymnastics and probably an earlier, not formalized form of parkour, jumping from one area to another area.
That's
doing that sort of
so
stuff.
sick, hey?
It sounds like you've never been able to sit still.
No, I definitely have.
Yeah. Do you play video games?
I do.
Oh, okay.
I do. I love video
and when
games.
I play video games, I play sport.
Yeah. While I juggle a soccer ball.
I definitely reckon I would have been, if I was born now, I would have ADHD. I would have been one of those kids who has like
this thing.
This thing that is not a thing anymore. Not a real thing in my
during
my
this
opinion.
podcast, if you need to get up and do a few burpees, mate. Anything.
Backflips.
Yeah. That's crazy. Rollerblading.
Yeah. And I
And skateboarding?
And I did a little bit of skateboarding. That was because it started to become cooler.
Okay.
But skating, like inline skating, was like the big thing when I was a kid, and then it kind of fell out of favor. And skateboarding's rise has definitely grown over the last like 10, 15 years. Where it's now an Olympic sport.
Yeah, which I think is sick.
I think everyone like roughly our age.
That just got released now as an Olympic sport, didn't it?
Yeah,
skateboarding.
I think it was the last Olympics. I can't
I think everyone roughly our age has gone through a skateboarding phase.
I haven't.
I was an absolute skate demon.
Mate, I jumped on. Who were you?
Oh, yeah.
I bought a skateboard 2016. I bought a skateboard.
Did you?
I was skating at like Maryland Skate Park.
Oh, wow.
Realised that surely if I wanted to go to the Commonwealth Games, I should probably give up on skateboarding because taking some pretty hard stacks.
Yeah.
Going from being a 50 odd kilo kid to being a 94 kilo weightlifter.
There's slight difference in
airtime.
airtime.
Physics.
Yeah. Far from Tony Hawk.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you were trying to find the next thing then, were you?
No, definitely not. I was trying to
Something that's
relive
gonna
my
get-
youth. I'd spoken to my wife. Were we married? No, we weren't married at the time. She was my girlfriend at the time, my wife, Christine. And I'd been talking about buying a skateboard forever. And we were walking past a skate shop in Redfern, going to get some gelato. And she was like, "You are buying a skateboard right now." So I
Wow.
literally bought that skateboard.
You would
and-
you would have felt like a kid in a candy store.
yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty nice. But
Yeah.
again, going from being a 50 kilo skater to being
Yeah.
a 90 kilo skater, it was
Bit different.
a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
I can still do it though, a little
Yeah.
bit.
All right.
Sure.
Check
Well-
out my Instagram.
Oh, you've got it up there.
I've got it up there.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Is that on Grease the Groove?
Yes, that's on Grease Groove Coach.
Grease the Groove Coach. So if you want to check out Scot Wilson while you're listening to this, at Grease the Groove Coach.
Yeah. Could you kickflip?
I could kickflip, pop shove it. I was more of a heel flipper than a kick flipper
fair
because I
enough.
didn't like also ruining my shoes.
Yeah,
Because
there you
my
go.
mum and dad wouldn't like to buy me brand new skate shoes. all
I
the
drive
time.
past sometimes, like in this area, the stairs I used to jump down on a skateboard, and like my knee hurts just
Yeah.
looking at those stairs
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Definitely
just don't understand how that was once me.
Definitely made of rubber as
Yeah.
kids
Oh.
bounced off the concrete. Nowadays,
yeah.
I shatter if I hit concrete.
We've just become a bit more fragile.
Yeah.
Where does rugby union fit in then? When did that begin?
So I played soccer all the way until I went back to Scotland, and when I moved back to Scotland in 2006, I hated soccer or football in Scotland. It was terrible. I'd gone from playing on like putting green football fields in Germany. The facilities there were exceptional to now playing on fields that you could, if you looked downhill, like you literally like people would like you couldn't see half their body because that's how hilly it was.
Oh, really?
I remember working onto my first football field and thinking this.
Well, you're playing in the Highlands, mate.
Pretty much.
Basically on a mountain.
Yes, in a bog. We were literally playing on a bog.
Right.
Wow.
Bog
So it's
head
like
pitch.
you're
On a
running
bog.
uphill or downhill
Yeah,
this
it
half.
was-
Oh, come on, man.
And then I eventually played rugby union on that field, and I was able to hit a drop goal from the halfway line because that's how much downhill it went.
Just from the decline.
Yeah. So rugby union, I started playing rugby union in 2008, 2007, end of 2007, beginning of 2008.
Yep.
And
See, the
yeah.
Germans would have engineered those fields to be exactly measured correctly, perfectly
Yeah.
level. They would have had all the tools, all the engineering possible. And the Scottish
just don't care.
wouldn't have cared
No.
at all.
lay
Wow,
some
what
grass.
a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I've experienced that with cricket,
Yeah.
playing on a good field,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
get the contrast of that when you go back.
You just can't. Like honestly, I went
what
from
am I
playing
doing here?
very good quality football or
Yeah.
soccer to really bad soccer, and it's just like I remember just like wanting to just pull my hair out. Being a striker, and just standing there and just being no constructed phase of play. I don't know whether you guys watch football.
You're
but-
relying on the bounce.
But literally, boys would just kick the ball up the park, and you had to get on the end of it and put it in the back of the net. There was no structured play.
Wow.
Right.
So it was bad.
Yeah.
So
that was the end of
yeah,
that.
that was the end of that. I fell in with a group of boys who one of them is a boy called Murray McConnell, who actually plays professional rugby now in England. He was like the main leader of the group sort of thing, and yeah, he played rugby, so everyone else was interested in rugby, and I just gave it a go and loved it. I think my first game for the school, I scored 3 tries, so I guess that kind of like says something. And Murray's dad, who was one of our was a coach of a rugby club, said, "Scott, do you want to come and play for the club team?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll give it a go." So I went back to Murray's house that night and had a Nutella sandwich for my first ever Nutella sandwich.
Wow.
It's memorable. And then then
Bloody
I went
hell.
to West of Scotland, which was a rugby club in Mulgai, just outside Glasgow, and I played there for a couple of seasons. Got to district level rugby, but I had not been in the sport long enough for the people who were in positions of power to know who I was, and never really got selected. And at that time, one of my friends, who was a terrible rugby player, was playing for Scotland under 16s rugby league, and I was like, if he's playing for Scotland, I can play for Scotland. So
Right.
I played 2 games of rugby league, and then I got made captain for Scotland under 16s. So yeah, that was my
Wow.
that was like a quick turnaround from going from rugby union to playing rugby league. And at that moment, I really realised the class difference in Scotland. That if you play rugby union, I think it's the same in Australia. You are a tot, a toff, I should say, a tot. You are born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You're posh.
Right. Well, that's the
perception.
I mean, that's the perception, the stereotype, isn't it?
Well,
let's just leave it as that.
Private school game, yeah, rugby union.
Is someone a private school boy at this table?
I'm definitely a private school boy.
Really?
However, yeah,
I'm a Catholic school boy, so. But I was AFL, so say what you want.
Well, no, like I mean, for me, it's I never played rugby union, and I've fucking don't enjoy watching rugby union at all.
It's very slow. It's very boring.
Yeah, it's too many rules, too many technicalities, too many this, too many that. Rugby league just seems a little more simple, and that's why I was drawn to it. So
I'm a simple
I
just
don't know what how some people would react if they thought of themselves with a silver spoon.
Yeah.
Okay. I apologise if I offended anyone.
No, shut up, Scott. You don't apologise for shit.
But there definitely was that in Scotland, was there?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And I got given an opportunity straight away. And I got to prove myself, and I captained Scotland in the 16s. We won the Shield that year in Europe, and at the same time, I met a guy called Tony Smith, who was at the time Warrington Wolves head coach, and was coaching the England Rugby League under England Knights, I think they were called. And after that competition, I got a phone call saying, "Would you like to go and play professional, or like academy level rugby in England?" And I was
for the Warrington Wolves.
For Warrington Wolves, yeah. So I bit the hand off for the opportunity. Yeah, and then that led me down the path of playing,
which is a Super League.
A Super League club, so like the NRL.
Yeah.
So when you started at Warrington Wolves, what was that process like? Was there expectations that were different, or how did you find that sort of experience early on?
So initially it was just like a phone call, just to get to know me, sort of thing. They spoke to my parents, and then kind of there was a bit of like a wedging off, like they kind of try to separate me from my parents and not try to have my parents as involved anymore. I think that makes it simpler for them to get rid of you eventually, which they did. But yeah, I went down, it was my birthday weekend.
Get rid of you as an athlete.
Get rid of me as an athlete, yes. So September 2009, I went down to Warrington just to do a little like trial, see the facilities, meet the coaches, and just get to see the environment they had there. It was amazing. And then about 3 months later, they said to me during that time, I need to get bigger. 3 months later, I went down for my first training experience with them. So we did a training session on the field in the gym. And then it was like the coldest winter we'd had in years, and the fields froze over. So we did another training session in the gym, and turned out that I was a much stronger and more powerful athlete than many of their guys in the academy. They're like their top players, but they still said, look, you need to get bigger. And they would not bring me down until I got bigger. So this was December 2009, and they never communicated with me until about April of 2010.
Right.
Which, as a young athlete who's been had a carrot dangled in front of them, it's a pretty hard thing to do. But I pretty self-motivated.
Were you small at this time?
Yeah, I was like 67 kilos, like ringing wet.
At what age?
This was just about 16.
Yeah, okay.
And then...
how tall were you at 16?
I couldn't tell you my height. I was not much taller than I am now.
Yeah.
Right.
I was probably like 5'8".
You weren't
5'9".
much taller than you are. You've gotten shorter.
Sorry, I wasn't much shorter. I wasn't much shorter than I am
I'm
now.
like,
shrunk.
Hang on a second, am I missing something?
Well, maybe from all the weightlifting, I have shrunk a little bit.
We want you to put on all this weight, and we want you to shrink as well.
Yeah, so they basically were like, get bigger, and I did that. My uncle was a bodybuilder. I remember reading Arnold's Encyclopedia Bodybuilding.
Yeah,
and
classic
one of
book.
the things the guy who was the head of youth there said, you need to get bigger shoulders. So I trained shoulders 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And I had the world's biggest shoulders, but no chest.
Yeah, you
And I still do
still
have those early days are pretty.
Your shoulders are pretty
important.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Was that your first introduction to weight training?
Yeah, it was. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Right.
I had no idea. They were meant to send me up. There was a strength conditioning coach at Warrington. They were meant to come up to Glasgow because his girlfriend lived there and was meant to do a strength conditioning session with me, and never bothered his ass. But I put close to over 30 kilos on. I was just under 100 kilos when I went back down in the July of 2010.
So what sort of time frame is that then for 30 kilos?
So September, I kind of around about the September started making a conscious effort to eat better.
September
2009 till July of 2010.
In less than a year,
you
have put on 30 kilos.
Ripe age, being 16
at the
years
age
old.
of 16.
A lot of body
you're
fat?
friggin' rife.
No, I wasn't that fat. I was pretty...
Your body's rife of all the hormones, eh?
Yeah.
30 kegs.
All of it.
I basically stopped going to school during that time, gave up on school. And my sole focus was rugby. My attendance in school was less than 50%, and they tried to kick me out. Yeah. And eventually what they did is just give me gym periods. So on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
They would have forgotten what you look like anyway if you put on that much weight.
Listen, at school, we had this guy, his name was Albert, and I don't think his immune system was very good. This guy was at home sick more often than he was actually at school. Yeah. So he got the nickname the new kid. So whenever we saw him, and he answered Albert, and he's like, yeah. And we'd look back, and we just started laughing. He's like, "Oh, the new kid's here again." Yeah. Dead set, eh? So you were the new kid.
I was the new kid.
The new kid with 30 kegs on him.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, that eventualized into a game, and my immediate dropping of from Warrington. They never contacted me again.
Really?
Yeah. So. That was pretty challenging to be, again, have that carrot dangled in front of you and then to have it pretty snatched away. Yeah, without it being too much my fault. Yeah. I'd done what they asked, but they hadn't really given me the guidance that I needed.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty common story. Like, actually, someone else we had on the podcast, Alessio, who was a professional baseballer, same sort of story. Like, his potential probably wasn't realised due to no fault of his own. Yeah. More so just based off like expectations or the perceived expectations of what they thought he should be versus what he actually was. It sounds like it's pretty similar to you. Like you came in with quite a bit of talent and some potential, but then they try chuck 30 kilos on you, and they're probably not seeing like what you actually are as a player.
Yeah.
So
it was definitely had the potential there, but just not having the right people in my corner definitely led to me not being successful.
Yeah, right.
And if they invested a little bit more time, perhaps maybe something better would have come out of it.
Yeah.
But the following year, I was able to get my revenge almost through that experience and a bit of heartache and a bit of upset.
What was your revenge?
I lost about 10 kilos and started really like delving into like strength and conditioning. So I found guys like Joe DeFranco. There was a guy called Joe Hashi on YouTube. I used to watch their videos and just started doing more.
Joe DeFranco Garage Gym.
Yeah, Garage Gym. Yeah, just started doing more strength and conditioning style training. So less bodybuilding, more traditional strength conditioning. So one of my sessions turned from like doing leg extensions, back squats, and leg press to now doing a dynamic warm up. Yeah, back squats and plyometrics.
Gotcha.
So okay. I went to more of like an athletic style of training. Yeah. And got a second opportunity with Salford City Reds. I played for their under 18s and under 20s, and got revenge in the sense where I got to play against Warrington Wolves again, and scored a try, shut my opposite man out on a couple of like goal line opportunities they had. Yeah. And just. Got to one up them essentially on my books.
Bit of a fuck you to them.
Bit of a fuck you.
I love that. That's good, man. So when did rugby league finish up then?
So my parents moved to Australia in 2012. My dad works in the Hunter Valley in the mines. Used to work. He actually got made redundant last week. Oh. Sucks for him.
Good.
It's a bad time of the year for the economy. Yeah. So my parents have come to Australia. I did have another opportunity to go back down to Salford, but I thought better of it, going to Salford and not earning much money and having to get a job and try to support myself versus moving to Australia.
Sure.
A fresh start, essentially, a new journey, a new experience, and I decided, I'm going to come to Australia. So I contacted a few rugby clubs, and a couple of them said they were interested. So I ended up coming over and playing for Maitland Pickers. I played 2 pre-season games, and then I had to bow out of competition that year because I had a bit of a bad knee, which turned out to not be too much, but I had a very bad advice from a physio who sent me to go get an arthroscope on a knee that probably didn't need it.
And that makes the blood boil a little, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What do you reckon, Jacko?
We were talking about this before. Like, actually, and I mentioned a mate of mine is actually doing his PhD on this exact thing, like low value care in musculoskeletal, therapy or medicine or whatever. And yeah, knee arthroscopes were right at the top of that list in terms of unnecessary expenses. So, and I've definitely had some unnecessary scopes, and I think it's like every time you get cut open, there's surgical trauma. Getting cut open has its own things.
Huge ramifications.
Yeah, like consequences, So, yeah, that must have been frustrating, man.
Yeah, definitely. So I got the arthroscope, and during my time playing rugby league, this was 2010. Yeah, end of 2010, I was in college and I got introduced to CrossFit. I never really did it because rugby was still the focus. So I did a few WODs and checked out a CrossFit gym, and then I went back to rugby. And then after my arthroscope, I'd been part of a CrossFit Glasgow's community at the end of my season before I came to Australia. So end of 2011 and beginning 2012, I'd got into CrossFit Glasgow. I did the Open that year, and again, my knee was sore, and then I came to Australia, and then eventually had the arthroscope. And I really decided, I don't want to be a rugby player anymore. I'm not going to make the NRL. I'm not going to be playing at a high enough level which will satisfy me. Let me go and try something new. And I went, I want to be a CrossFit Games athlete, like everyone who does CrossFit.
It's funny, like a lot of ex-athletes end up going CrossFit after retirement.
I don't think I've ever met anyone that's done CrossFit at a decent enough level, not necessarily at the top, who's done something else before, and has natural gifts.
Yeah,
for lack of a better
term. Why do you reckon that is?
I think CrossFit requires a large variety of different skills. It also requires a very, very diverse fundamental of strength. So you've got to be strong in a lot of different ways, and then your ability to acquire skill needs to also be good. So you need to be in sports so people that have done gymnastics in the past, where they've had to learn very highly complex skills. Then get to apply that skill acquisition and I suppose that process of learning to CrossFit. But then you can't really be a great gymnast without having a really good, strong foundation of strength. So that, in a sense, you can train to do CrossFit the same way that gymnasts train to do gymnastics. It's just you need a good foundation of strength, and then you can build the skill after that.
Plus it allows for daily competitiveness as well.
Well, that's right. So I think to answer your question, Jacko, it's more the reason why I think people with previous sport get involved is because they've got the foundation of strength already, and then all they need to do is build the skill on top.
Gotcha. Yeah,
definitely. So yeah,
do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was, when it came to CrossFit, so when I first got into CrossFit, I watched a video, a Reebok ad with Blair Morrison, and you can you look it up on YouTube, and he's there doing muscle ups from a rings out on a tree. And I literally remember having the epiphany. I looked out my window in Scotland, I saw a tree, and I'm like, I can hang rings from that.
All right.
So I bought a set of rings, and I remember my brother came home from Asda, which is like Coles. It was a trolley put away.
Okay.
And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, come and watch this. So I showed him all these videos on YouTube, and again, day one to get in the rings, I could do muscle ups, no problem. Yeah. It wasn't a thing. I could already do bar muscle ups on a Olympic weightlifting bar in a squat rack. Right. So doing muscle ups on a ring was a lot easier.
You can't be like, if you're doing that, you hang the barbell up, you can't wobble that around too much.
No, because you'll fall out. You'll literally fall out.
You'll just flick the barbell out of the J hook.
So got the
which
rings.
Tells me your skill. You just have to watch something once, and you've.
So I got the muscle ups. Then I bought a 32 kilo kettlebell. Didn't know how the fuck to swing it.
No.
Trying to swing it overhead, probably almost took my head off a few times. And then then went to a CrossFit gym and just kind of started feeling it out. And
CrossFit Glasgow?
It was actually called Clan CrossFit. There was another CrossFit gym called Clan CrossFit. And after my season with Salford, I went and joined the gym, and within a week I was coaching CrossFit, which tells which tells you a lot about how bad.
This guy rocks up first week captain, first week coach, first week
first time touching rings, muscle up.
Yeah, so tells you a lot about the owner, who did not really care about his members. He was happy to.
I think it says more about your natural capabilities, man. Yeah.
It sounds like
that's where I was going.
It sounds like you get pissed off if you can't do something too.
Yeah, definitely. So
yeah, for someone that probably gets used to that. That would be quite frustrating if you can't do something.
Yeah, well, weightlifting was my frustrating thing at CrossFit. So My first time I ever snatched, I did 90 kilos, so over body weight. But clean and jerks, I had no ability to clean and jerk whatsoever.
Okay.
Did you just muscle it up the first time?
It's basically like a
Muscle snatch.
power bicep curl.
Yeah.
And my
Fair
jerk was atrocious. So I finished, I got the arthroscope in November of 2019, 2012. And then I was working in the mines during that time. I quit the job in the mines and said I want to really go in this CrossFit thing. Found a CrossFit gym, got a job, and just so happened there was a weightlifting coach at this gym. Like just a series of fortunate events. And I said, you know what? I can do all the conditioning stuff. I can do WODs. My Fran time is 2:46 or whatever it was at the time.
Hectic.
But my barbell competency is atrocious. I need to become a better weightlifter. I need to move the barbell, and given what was happening at regionals, the weights were getting heavier, the barbells were getting heavier. I really needed to bring that up. So found this weightlifting coach called Dan Clapey. Didn't do any CrossFit during that time, just really focused on weightlifting. Went to New South Wales State Championships, won 94 kilo class, snatched 120, slightly tore my lat or something in my like scap region, and still clean and jerked and still hit a PR and still won. And then went to nationals, and then during that time, Dan had some things happen in his own personal life, which meant that he could no longer coach me, and kind of lost my way. And you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna go back to CrossFit because that was always the original plan. But I was in line to qualify for the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow in 2014. But without that guidance and without that clear like path, I kind of lost my way and went, you know what, I'll go back to CrossFit because it's kind of what I know.
Yeah.
Right. So that might have been a little missed opportunity there.
Definitely. That's like, I have very few regrets in my life, and that's probably one of them.
Wow.
Not pushing weightlifting more at that time.
Yeah, not pushing weightlifting. If I just had the right people, I think, and the right like persons, and I had the right mental attitude, I think I could have went to the 2014 Commonwealth Games, and then the 2018 Commonwealth Games would have been more of a not going to get the experience and not going to get the t-shirt, but more actually about trying to compete, trying to get top 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. It sounds like you're more confident in that than you were, because there was obviously parallels to your rugby league as well. Like you had some opportunity there that probably wasn't seen as well. Yeah. But it sounds like you're probably a bit more confident with your weightlifting.
And another coach letting you down.
Yeah.
It's definitely a theme, and so I finished that year. I did the CrossFit Open 2014, and I just destroyed my body.
I'd went from CrossFit Open. You
just
really.
It was more me, to be honest, than anything. I'd went from just doing weightlifting to then doing weightlifting plus CrossFit, and then came around about the New Year period, and I'd been speaking to the guys at what was CrossFit GCS, then CrossFit Creature, and been doing the CrossFit Invictus program. I realized I wasn't fit enough, so I started doing cardio. And with a 240, with a 240 Fran, not fit enough, mate.
Well, with CrossFit,
which actually, at the top level, it really isn't.
Isn't it? Yeah. It's not. I had to get fit up.
I think, what's the record? 153.
Oh my god,
it's below 2.
It's out of control
with CrossFit, because CrossFit, I see a lot of it is like you have to be a generalist in many areas. Did that frustrate you? Is that what pushed you towards weightlifting, where you could sort of specialize in?
No. The weightlifting was my weakness. Like I was good at the WODs, like because of that aerobic base from rugby. I could do the burpees and all the other shit that you have to do in CrossFit. I could do muscle ups. I did.
That came easy to you.
30 muscle ups in, I think it was like 2 minutes 30 was my time, to do 30 muscle ups. When I remember when I first tested that at CrossFit Glasgow, and everyone was like, "Oh shit." Yep. But then the year off because of not playing footy because of my knee, and then having the arthroscope, and then focusing on weightlifting for almost a whole year, my aerobic base had eroded, and I no longer had that aerobic capacity. So going back into CrossFit with the mentality that I'm actually a really fit and gymnastics-y sort of guy, and now my barbell's better, it actually turned that, no, I'm actually a better barbell lifter and not so much a fit and like body weight / gymnastics sort of guy. Yeah, right. So I changed my competency, it flipped. It was now I was a weightlifter, not a CrossFit.
Not a CrossFitter.
Yeah.
And so with your weightlifting, I know that, so that's from 2014 onwards. Yeah. Was it your focus?
Yeah, that was just my focus. So I went and did, stupidly after the Open, I went and did this thing called Grid League or NPFL combines in America. thinking I'm going to become a CrossFit professional athlete sort of thing for
Yeah.
these teams, and waste a lot of time and energy and money going to America, and it just never eventualized into anything.
That grid league. So
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought the concept of the grid league. Do you know the grid league?
No.
So the grid league is basically the NPFL, or as they called it. They wanted to create a league, and it wasn't CrossFit. They wanted to compete with CrossFit. They thought they had a better idea. They wanted to create a week-on-week league of specific teams that would go in and compete with each other, just like the NRL or any other league, the AFL, whatever league we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And there'd be weekly competition, and you'd sub in, sub out, depending on what the workouts were going to be for that week.
Right.
And all the teams would compete against each other.
It was going to be televised.
Yeah, it was televised on NBC.
yeah.
They got it on NBC eventually in America.
Okay. Yeah, and so they put a lot of money into it, but
Sounds sick.
they were paying athletes, and it was a way for these poor ass CrossFit athletes
really
to actually make
live
money.
the athlete dream, essentially.
Yeah, and
it was another opportunity for me.
Yeah, and
sense,
I don't think it was. I don't think it was.
They were going to pay. They were paying a livable salary.
I can't remember
Enough
the
to go
exact-
there.
Yeah, enough
to warrant go.
Yeah,
There, yeah.
most of the teams were paying for like a house for all the athletes to live at.
Okay.
But of course, like it's, is it enough to make a professional, like a career out of it?
Right.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But it was enough back then to get paid to do something that you just enjoyed doing as a sport.
Sure.
And it was also, at that time, I don't know if I didn't consider it silly at all. Like I remember,
I took it completely seriously.
yeah, a lot of people were taking it seriously because they all saw that there was potential in this NPFL or grid league taking off.
Yeah.
It just didn't.
No, it just
didn't.
Like
Yeah.
many
They
things
competed-
with good intentions. They just
like
they
wrong
put a
time.
lot of
They competed with CrossFit. But they didn't work with CrossFit.
They put a lot of money into something that they hadn't really thought out of, like the plan for it. It wasn't really well outlined. There was an idea, which was a good idea, and it just was poorly executed.
I think so, and they tried to grow
Too quick.
too quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas CrossFit's foundations were actually really slow and
Community.
underground, community
Yeah.
based.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Garage
so-
gyms, that sort of thing.
So when
what
did
it
you go? When did you go all in with weightlifting? Then?
So I finished the 2014 Open, and I was destroyed. I had and the grid league sort of stuff. I had Decquervain's tenosynovitis.
Yeah.
Decquervain's.
Decquervain's
Decquervain's, yeah.
tenosynovitis.
Yeah.
I had basically a Mars bar in my forearm of inflammation. Like I literally couldn't bend my wrist, so I ended up getting 2 cortisone injections for that. And that was when I just went over to America to do the first grid league combine thing. And I came back, and then I went back over to the Vegas one, which was like the big like qualification. You get selected for a team if you do well. And was told, you don't have enough of a social media following, we're not interested. And then, despite being better than a lot of the other athletes who were there, but they had big social media followings. And then came home, and I remember I was like, right, I'm going to give myself the rest of the week off. This was a Thursday, and on Monday I'm going to begin my preparation for the 2015 regionals. And basically on the Monday I tried to step underneath the bar and put it on my back, and I couldn't, just had no shoulder extension. My shoulder was frozen, and I literally put the bar on my back and threw it off. My brand new $800 Glen Penley bar. And Christine's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I don't know." So it turned out I had intersection syndrome. And my shoulder was pretty badly beat up, and I was just
On the same side as the
on
lat issue?
not opposite side, the same side as the Decquervain's. So I just like my body was just in shutdown. Mentally, I was drained from competing and training and working in a negative environment because my work at the time wasn't the best. I wasn't looking after myself. I wasn't doing the things to take care of myself. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't sleeping well. So I stopped training. I started meditating. I started eating better. I focused on going to sleep. And within about 2.5, 3 months, my body was good again. And that was when I really made the commitment. You know what? I've missed out on a massive opportunity to go to the Commonwealth Games. It was a home games. It was would have been in front of my family. My gran and granddad could have come and seen me lift. In Glasgow.
Yeah.
But I didn't take advantage of that opportunity. And that was like at the end of the year, that was like my big realization. It was like, you know what, like you had an opportunity, you didn't take it. So you've got another Commonwealth Games coming up in technically a home games now that you live in Australia. You are going. There's nothing you are not going to do to go. And that was when my whole sole focus as an athlete became on weightlifting.
Wow. And this is what I find fascinating, right? Like when you were a 16-year-old playing for Warrington Wolves? Yeah. Did you, like, at no point would you have probably fathomed that you were going to be competing for Scotland in weightlifting at the Commonwealth Games?
Probably not. And
I find that this journey for athletes, so what is it about weightlifting that you really enjoy? Like, what's kept you there?
Every sport I've ever played up until that point, other than CrossFit, was a team sport where you depend on other people and your success is built on the back of other people. Like, you can be a Cristiano Ronaldo, but if you're playing for fucking Sydney Swans and you're playing against Real Madrid, you're still going to get pumped. Like, it doesn't matter.
And if you play for the Sydney Swans versus Real Madrid,
you're
we're playing different fucking games.
We're playing different sports.
But I know what you're talking about.
So despite being a talented athlete, my success was too dependent on other people. And weightlifting was a sport that, you need a coach and you need someone there to guide you and count the board for you, but it's you make the lift or you don't. That's it. It's very cut and dry. It's very black and white. There's no subjectivity to it. And again, there's very little dependence on other people. And as you've heard through my story so far, I have been let down by people, not because it's their fault, but they just weren't equipped with the tools to make me live up to my potential. And they had their own lives and their own things to go on about. And I don't hold any bitterness or resentment towards them. But had they been more aware and had they known, they could have made me more than what I was. So that was why the Commonwealth Games was so important to me in 2018.
And when you say, like, what sort of things were you relying on your coach for?
Just guidance, purely guidance. Like,
and what if they guided you to do what, like, something really, like, and even for the basic things, right? Like,
like, it's like, I've never been in weightlifting. I'd never been to a weightlifting competition. I'd never been involved with the sport. Now, my first coach, Dan, did a really good job, despite me never have seen a weightlifting competition and never being involved in one, in preparing me for the actual process of going through a weightlifting competition. But there are things that you have to do when you are part of a sport. There are people that you need to know and names you need to remember and all these other things that you just go into the daily running of a sport that you need to be aware of. And if you're not, then you're out of the loop. You're at a disadvantage.
Right.
Like, if you have people on the inside who know what's happening, you are more likely to be successful.
Yeah. It's a bit of who you know by the sense of it. Yeah.
It's not a who you know in weightlifting, in the sense where, like, if you're the best lifter, you're the best lifter.
Sure.
But if you don't know the sport, you don't know the sport. You don't know what competition to go to. You don't know how you qualify for competitions.
How to get the exposure to the events you need to be at and things like that. Yeah.
Like, I definitely believe that one of the parts of getting to the top of your game is to understand the game.
Yeah, understand the game.
Yeah.
Yes. And going to the right competitions is one thing. Knowing which competitions to not go to is another one. And
for you and
which
Nick,
coach not to go with, which coach to go with.
Yeah.
There are definitely things that can hamstring you and hold you back if you make the wrong decision.
Most definitely.
And I'm not saying I made the wrong decision in the past, but I was just naive.
Well, weightlifting in Australia is extremely political, and we won't go into that. But
luckily I've lived for Scotland, so.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's right.
Yeah.
And you're a long way away.
Yeah.
Which is one step removed, which is nice.
Yeah. Did you, in your prep for the Com Games, were there many setbacks?
Yeah. Well, so 2014, obviously horror of a year. Didn't make regionals. My sense of self was very, very bruised. I decided to move to Sydney in 2015. That's actually when I met Nick. Moved in with my wife.
Did you move down for me?
I did not move down for you. I moved down to live with my wife and to actually get away from that, like, negative work environment in Newcastle where I was working at a CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
And I decided to reinvent myself as a weightlifting coach. So I took a job at Lift Performance Centre as the head of weightlifting there, and really just made weightlifting my passion.
Gotcha.
In terms of setbacks, I won nationals that year, which was not in my plan. my plan was to win nationals in 2016, qualify for the Commonwealth Games in 2017, compete in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So 2015 was like a leap, like a springboard year.
So like ahead of schedule.
So I won ahead of schedule, and then what do you do? Like, you've done all these things to get you to that level. So 2015, I meditated every day. I ate well. I saw Nick every week or every second week for the whole first part of the year. I tried to foster an environment and a mentality with really positivity, and just really like nailed all my things. I got a coach for a little bit of that year. Mostly coached myself throughout my career, but I had a coach for a little bit of that year. And yeah, I just...
Leicester?
No, that was Stephen Tickenen at
Steve
Sox.
Yeah.
So I worked with Steve between, I think it was like, I can't remember.
that.
Yeah, it was April and June or something like that, for like 3 months, because he was off work from TAFE. He was like taking his long service leave, and he was available during the day. I won New South Wales State Championships, and then went to nationals and won, and that wasn't in the plan.
Yeah.
And all the things that I'd done in 2015 to make me successful and win the nationals early, I basically abandoned and just destroyed myself in the last couple of months of the year. I just stopped meditating. I stopped being mindful of my nutrition, and just went full blast on trying to be a big fat weightlifter. And just destroyed myself.
Because that's what you thought you needed.
That's what I thought I needed. I just was... Everything that had worked, I abandoned. So 2016, I'd hurt my wrist. 2015, I hurt my wrist. I was doing I think a 137 snatch in training, and I felt my wrist like bend and pop. Something in my wrist pop.
It's never good.
And yeah, it wasn't good. And after that, I didn't really snatch much for the rest of the year. I went to Japan. I came back, and then that was when I really started training again hard, and wrapped my wrist and just went on with it. And that's when my shoulder got bad. I ended up getting a bit of a labrum cyst in my labrum. And Nick and I made the decision for me not to compete that year because, again, knowing the sport
like
of weightlifting...
Like a paralabral cyst, was it?
That was, yeah, and it was also unstable. It was just that was it. I remember that conversation.
It was a hard conversation to have, but it was the right conversation because Nick and I both knew that 2016 was not important. I could not qualify for the Commonwealth Games in 2016, but I could qualify for in 2017. So by not competing in 2016, yes, I was missing on valuable experience, but I wasn't putting wear and tear on my body, which was unnecessary.
How did that feel for you hearing that from Nick? Like, were you on the same page initially?
Yeah, I was appreciative because it was a thought that I was having in my mind, but I didn't have the commitment to follow through with it, and having someone give me that right guidance and that right advice at that right time led to me going on a path that eventually led to me qualifying for the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
And if I had just pursued weightlifting, I know that I would not have.
And it sounds like there was a lot of trust already built.
The way I generally go about things, and I suppose an insight into how I manage the athlete, is if there is bad news to be given, I generally hold off until it's like the writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
And the athlete has seen me trial and error, and in a very logical and progressive way, try something, it failed, try something, it failed, try something, and basically remove myself from being the fixer, but more so the scientist. And it's usually a 4 to 6 week process of the athlete and not like basically at the beginning I'm optimistic, but then every week that goes by where there's no change generally just reduces my optimism, but so does theirs.
Sure.
And when the athlete can see the logical progression and the logical, essentially like the failure of the work being done, we're working together. It's not just me fixing or treating or needling or whatever. It's like we're rehabbing. We're doing everything.
Yeah.
And so, but then they're sort of like, oh no, it's like still there. It's like I still can't snatch or I still can't catch the bar. And usually it's like, well, okay, I think it would have been a 12 to 14 weeks out. Usually it's a good time to call it.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like, well, real prep starts 12 weeks out. And that's when the conversation naturally enters. It's like, well, how far out are we?
Yeah, and what was the alternative? You go get like a cortisone shot and then go and compete, and then next year's jeopardized.
Yeah.
You know, like.
And this is where chiros, physios that want to get involved with sport, people, they've got to step into the coaching role. You've got to step into that coaching role, because that coaching role is not me telling him It's actually together we've worked through this. We're both on the same page, and we've both come to the same realization. Generally speaking, I don't think I've ever been on a different page than my athlete when it comes to a tough decision. The tough decision is almost always a slow process, and it's not a forced one, and it's not my decision in the end anyway.
Well, and the thing is as well, like someone at Scott's level, or, you know, any high level athlete has a certain level of like intuition with their body anyway, and you're going to know when it's time to pull the plug. Yeah.
We were talking about this in treatment the other day. Like I left the room last week and instinctively knew that we had hit gold. I've got a bit of a knee issue right now, which has been going on for a little while, but I got off the table last week and I was confident that we had made big leap forward. And I knew in 2016 that I was not going to be able to do what I had done the year before, and my performance was going to be worse, if not like considerably worse. And who wants to do that? Who wants to go backwards? So making the decision to not compete was definitely the right decision.
That would have been 12 weeks of that lead up.
Yeah.
Plus, who knows how long you would have needed off.
Yeah.
Or post comp. So it's like, and then dealing with the aftermath of that injury would have taken even longer. Yeah. So really, it actually would have put you 6 months back at least on your Commonwealth Games qualification.
So dislocation,
and plus, it was like risk versus benefit.
Yeah. It was not good. No. It was definitely not good. And
although it was borderline.
Yeah.
And it was like you were like
we made the decision at the last moment. Essentially, it was like, right, okay, it's just we've given it as much time as we can. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately.
Like some things are obvious. It's like, oh yeah, you've completely ripped the shit out of your shoulder. Like, let's just stop now. But it wasn't that type of decision. It was like, oh, that cyst probably been there.
What if it was the Com Games? Would have you done something different?
If it was Com Games, I would have planned through.
I would not give a fuck. And I would be like,
Scott, you got to
shut up. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Or well, I would be telling myself to shut up. Stop being the scientist. Start being the supporter.
Gotcha.
Because
you were willing to deal with the aftermath of that.
I would have accepted any sort of risk if it had been for the Commonwealth Games.
Gotcha.
And we did. I even trained through an injury going into the Commonwealth Games. I went in not in 100% physical condition. Try to paint the picture again. 2016 was like just a really bad year, but I took the year off, and then the following year was like the real important year when I had to qualify for the Commonwealth Games.
Gotcha.
So I didn't compete at all throughout 2016, and then it
was just prep.
It was basically rehab
rehab
the whole year
for the shoulder.
For the shoulder and the wrist. The wrist was still an underlying
What did you do to the
issue.
wrist?
So was it Ziz? What's the unstable lateral?
I think it was a scapholunate.
He was the bodybuilder on Facebook, wasn't he?
What's the unstable?
Scapholunate.
Yeah, that's it.
Dizzy.
Yeah, dizzy. Yeah,
Dizzy Vizzy. Is that what you're talking about?
Dizzy Vizzy. I don't know. Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Intercarpal instability.
Yeah, carpal instability.
Oh yeah.
So 2016 came and went. Again, I was not working in an environment that was very positive, and it sounds like a bit of a common theme that if I'm in a very negative environment, it leads to ongoing issues in my body. But there was also work. I will not just put the shit on those people because they might listen to this. I had to do work on myself, and eventually did do that work after the Commonwealth Games. So I am aware of my own faults as a human being. But yeah, 2006.
It's a good quality to have.
That was very correctly said.
At the end of 2016, we rehabbed my shoulder. It was kind of good, but wasn't 100%. And I started working with a guy called Lester Ho down in Melbourne. He's the training geek. The first.
He's still going?
Yeah, he's still going. The first online weightlifting coach. That's yes, good. And now all of those fucking old dinosaur weightlifting coaches used to talk shit about Lester for coaching online. Can suck a dick. Now they're all coaching online.
Are they?
Yeah.
That's right. Well, COVID.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Now what?
They are dinosaurs. Hey.
Yeah. So I worked with Lester, and things were going well, but again, I was putting trust in someone, and I did trust Lester, and I've got a lot of respect for Lester, but I just didn't feel like he understood me as well as I understood myself. So after the new year into 2017, I cut it off with Lester. I also quit my job as a high-paid, or well-paid, salaried weightlifting coach in the west of Sydney to open up my own business. And I decided that was the year I was also going to ask my wife to marry me. And I was trying to qualify for Commonwealth Games. So
It's a big year.
2017
Pivotal.
was it was a pretty it was a pivotal moment in my life. So after I'd put my resignation in my job, I went to Japan, and while I was in Japan, I basically fucking every day did gymnastics bodies wrist preparation work, because I'd started doing this in the new year. Before the new year, I should say, and it made a bit of a difference because I was still having the wrist issue. So it's just gymnastics bodies. So it's an online gymnastics training program.
Okay.
They've got just like a handstand wrist preparation stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's like fingertip push-ups, wrist stretches, all this different stuff. So basically, I was
Let's put it this way. This program is long, arduous,
boring as fuck.
difficult
Yeah.
gymnastics training.
Okay.
For adults.
To
For
build
adults.
tolerance and through the wrist, basically.
Basically,
weight bearing.
it's highly traditional.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit tailored to adults. But really the people that are meant to succeed at it are children.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But it worked
Yes.
for me. Every day.
Well, someone with your discipline,
Yeah.
of course, because you're going to do it.
Every day while I was in Japan, like from day one, I did my wrist prep work. And at the same time, at the end of last 2016, I'd been introduced to a guy called Julian Pinot and StrongFit. And while I was in Japan, really, he just came to Australia to do another seminar, and I missed him, which I was really upset about. But he'd posted up videos called the bicep oblique shoulder opener and talked about how like internal torque and engaging of the pec and the lat will create stability overhead. And funnily enough, Kirksman Teo, who was a weightlifting coach who I'd worked with slightly at the end of 2014, he had spoken about this exact thing. But Kirksman's Malaysian and worked with Chinese weightlifting coaches and didn't have the vocabulary to explain it very well to me.
Yes.
Right. When Julian, it was like Inception.
Although Julian's English isn't exactly.
Yeah, that's the funny thing.
Yeah.
Kirksman implanted the idea in my brain, and Lester also touched on it slightly, but then Julian like really made the thing clear.
Julian expresses the way Julian expresses it is in a very visual and artistic way, so that you can almost see it.
So his whole thing is like, if you throw a punch, your thumb turns inwards, which is internal torque.
Right.
If you throw a punch outwards, which is external rotation or external torque, it doesn't feel right. Sure. What do weightlifting coaches and CrossFit coaches tell their athletes to do all the time? Externally rotate from the shoulder. Yeah. That's what I'd been taught as well. Why had I always had shoulder issues?
Well,
And is that
we don't want to go
relating
into the
back?
Kelly Starrett.
Yeah, that's
Now we don't want to go into
now we're going down
because I really respect
shit.
Kelly, and I think that he's got a lot of value. I just think that
there's certain things he's
there
been
are
so
certain,
fucking wrong
he's
on.
he's not a weightlifter.
Yeah.
So this is getting a little bit nerdy, but like the internal torque, is that, I mean, pec and lat being internal rotators, that's using your
but
powerful...
it's not rotation.
It's torque. It's tension.
Yeah.
It's tension.
Tension, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Creating pec and lat tension overhead.
A lot of people try and squat and deadlift with internal and external torque.
Yeah.
So with a squat, for example, the pull component of the squat is the down phase.
Yeah.
And the push component of the squat is the up phase. So you've got to externally torque on the way down and internally torque on the way. But people misinterpret that as knees out and knees in.
Yeah.
And then
And it's like, no, it is not knees out and knees in. It's just a bit of like just some tension.
Yeah. So
Nothing's meant to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wrist preparation from gymnastics bodies. That basically, like, I got back from Japan and opened up my gym so athletic, and I could snatch with like minimal to no wrist pain. So I just wrapped it up, but continued to do my wrist prep work.
So it was helpful.
It was massively. Like, it was night and day difference. I remember in Japan, I went and lived at Waseda University, and I remember snatching for the first time after about a week of doing the wrist prep work, and it was a night and day difference.
Right.
And then during that time, I'd been watching Julian's stuff, watching all his videos, trying to get as much information out of him as I can without doing the workshop and the seminar. And got back and immediately implemented the bicep oblique shoulder opener. So every day for about 6 weeks, I did bicep oblique shoulder opener before I'd snatch, clean and jerk, or any session, just to pattern the movement, engage the pecs, lats. And it was about 8 weeks later, I was at my first comp down in ACT, because New South Wales Weightlifting Association wouldn't let me lift here, wankers. I shouldn't have said that.
That's okay. It's
Fuck
okay.
you guys.
No comment.
So yeah, I went down to ACT and I was snatching, and it's my first comp back since 2015 when I won nationals. And halfway through the comp, I realized my shoulder wasn't sore, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like, I've gone from bad wrist pain, really bad shoulder pain, to nothing in a very short window of time.
Yeah.
This was, I don't know, 12 weeks.
Awesome.
And it was
This is
massively different.
Scott, because throughout this process, I'm hearing you've had to learn a lot about about yourself and like the body, and like
Because you've done this with very little guidance.
Yeah.
upskill. Correct. And the part that I've learned from you over this time is, you need, like, in order to help someone get through pain, you need to have like a multifaceted approach, which sometimes does not involve you. Like, I can't possibly know everything,
Yeah.
and nor can Julian Pinot.
Yeah.
Although he is one gifted.
Oh, it's very,
mofo.
very. I look up to him. I'm raging that I've not been able to do the Strong Fit seminar.
Yeah.
I've paid for some of the
Have you
online
heard of Julian
stuff.
Pinot?
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
I've paid for some of the
Excellent
stuff
stuff.
online. I don't want to do the workshop until I meet him in person, because I feel like I need to go and meet the guy.
Okay.
Because 2017 I was in Japan, and 2018 I was at the Commonwealth Games when he was here. So
Yeah.
both times it was just unfortunate timing that I didn't get to go and spend time with him.
The thing that you know, like, I'm just not 100% sure how evidence based his approach is. Whereas a lot of it
working
is
a lot on that now
quite,
recently.
yeah, a lot of it's quite hypothetical, a little bit speculative, and potentially philosophical.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is cool, so long as you take it with a grain of salt, right? Just like
That's
everything.
Like everything.
Like
It's
everything. So,
Yeah.
definitely from Scott, I've learnt that you can't fix everyone
Sure.
for everything.
Of course.
And this is where, like, the right thing, we were saying this the other day, Scott, the right thing will work quickly.
Yeah.
The right
Massively.
thing will
Is
work
that, that's
quickly.
what you found with your shoulder, by the sounds of it. Yeah.
Shoulder, my knee.
Knee.
Like, I've had
The
like
right knee, the
gapping-
left knee.
gapping and clicking in my knee. Well, let's go all the way back to 2015 when I first met Nick. We didn't tell him the story. But 2015, I've had my arthroscope in 2012, and all throughout that time of doing CrossFit, 2013, 14, I had like chronic knee pain. Like, never got better. I had needling, massage. I'd seen a couple of other physios that charge a lot of money with it, and with no
Hold it there, Scotty.
little to no progress whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I saw Nick, and within 6 weeks, my knee was never sore again. I've never had a knee problem on my right knee ever since.
What'd you do?
Well, what I did then, actually, literally, was a lot of manual therapy and some rehab.
But you also found the root cause of the issue rather than just...
Well,
in your perspective then, Scotty, what did Nick do?
okay,
So
that's probably better.
I'd had... Nick had needled my quad and stuff like that, like down like the vastus lateralis, because it was pulling to the right side, and my ITB was tight, and my TFL and my glutes and all this sort of shit. But then he also sent me to get an ultrasound on my patella tendon. Because he was like, "Oh, your patella tendon's a bit ropey," and I'd had the arthroscope on that same knee. So I got the ultrasound, and during the ultrasound, the guy's like, "Oh, that's pretty thick. Like that's some pretty knotty patella tendonitis you got there."
On the medial aspect,
and
when
then
the problem was lateral. The pain was lateral, but the medial patella tendon was very thickened.
And yeah, after that we. What would you call it? I call it Gaoyo, which is Vietnamese for gua sha or Graston's technique. Yeah.
Yeah, we just scrape the shit out of
Scrape
it.
the fucking shit out of my knee, and threw a few needles in there as well, just for good measure. And what do you know? Honestly, within 6 weeks,
Didn't take
seeing
long.
Nick, it was like I had no more knee pain, and to me that was like wow.
And
Now,
rehab, like just what? Just tendon rehab?
like eccentrics, isometrics.
Isometrics.
Standard tendon, yeah.
The thing, right, is when we look at this in retrospect, because every 3 or 4 years, there's almost like a natural evolution of how we think as clinicians and
especially for
whatnot.
tendons.
It's extremely quick in how quickly we change, right? So back then, my mindset was still very mechanical.
Yeah.
Still very, very mechanical, right? Now, that was me opening up the inside mechanically so that it takes pressure off the inside mechanically. And then, however, there's actually like a far more intricate process that might actually be going on. firstly, weren't 100% sure on what the fuck was wrong with your knee.
Yeah.
Right? That's number one. Number two is you then got an ultrasound and gained clarity on that. Number three, we then had a structured approach towards how we're going to a plan. We basically had a plan to and you believed in that plan.
Yeah.
And so did I. So there's actually a study done where they've got a group of people that are giving out antibiotics. So medication, I can't remember exactly. Medication and a control. And then you've got a control group that's giving out the same dosage, but actually that's a placebo.
Yeah.
However, the doctor and the patient in both actually believe what's going on.
Yeah.
Like they believe that it's antibiotics, it's going to work.
Yeah.
And there's no difference between the two groups.
Yeah.
Now that either tells you that the antibiotics don't work, or the fact that
They believe
if you believe it works, it will.
Yeah.
Now, absolutely, if you believe it works, it will. I'm certain that there are actual things that we did to make an impact to the knee, whether that's through the rehab or not. But I think with you at that time, there was something that we didn't know about, and that was the actual process that we were going through from a psychological point of view that also helped, but probably allowed it to work.
Yeah.
How true that is, I don't know. In hindsight, it's like, yeah, that definitely had a role. How much, I don't know. So,
yeah, probably column A, column B, right? Like
Yeah.
mechanical changes, tendon loading, treatment.
yeah,
And you've Scotty, being able to find Nick, who's someone who you get along with, someone who can give you some
Yeah, even
reassurance,
that.
someone who can give you a plan. Yeah, exactly. Like it's someone who's built trust and rapport with you. Like that in itself might be just as powerful as the mechanical stuff. We don't know.
No,
Can't go
definitely.
back, so.
The other people who I've seen, I definitely did not have a relationship with that I enjoyed being around them.
Right.
Actually, they pissed me off sometimes.
okay.
So but then there were, on the other hand, there were people I had very good relationships with.
Yes.
Who had been able to make a lasting change, and because of my knee, I'd actually end up getting. Just to paint the picture for what we're about to go into after the Commonwealth Games, I end up getting what you call orthotics to try and fix my knee problem, which rather than fixing my knee, actually fucked my left hip completely.
Right.
And to this day, I still have left hip issues, which plagued me till after the Commonwealth Games. But I have also now fixed them myself.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I've also fixed that
Exactly.
myself. So
Yeah.
That's another topic.
we'll get
And
to
this
that later on.
this is where this is all through real movement.
Yeah.
And like knees
Well,
over toes guy. And,
really the hip stuff's been
or FRC.
FRC,
Yeah.
yeah. So
See, look at all these things, right? Like,
Crazy.
in order for you to be at the level that you are, you got to do the things that other people just won't do.
There's been some, like you've mentioned the wrist program,
Yeah.
the shoulder program.
So gymnastics bodies, wrist, handstand preparation work.
Yeah.
Then you've got the Strong Fit bicep oblique shoulder opener.
Yeah.
I even made videos and posted this out in the CrossFit community in Australia and got like crickets. And I'm like,
Yeah,
you guys
they-
all have fucking shoulder
they don't-
issues.
they don't care.
Why the fuck are you not doing something about it? And
Yeah.
I every time. So yesterday was Wednesday. My guys weightlift at Breakthrough Fitness on Wednesdays. We did bicep oblique shoulder opener.
Yeah.
We did tricep oblique shoulder.
And
we do it every week.
You incorporate what you learn
all
and
the
what
time.
works for you.
What works for me, and if it doesn't work for my athletes, well then I'll get rid of it.
Yep.
I love the Ben Patrick stuff.
Yeah.
And I know you're
Yeah.
pretty into
You got
it as
gymnastics,
well.
body, strong fit. What other stuff did you do? Did you say?
Well, FRC for my hip functional range
FRC.
conditioning.
I'm just making a note of all
Yeah.
this because I'm sure that. Yeah. What
Might
else?
Be interested. Then I've been definitely heavily involved with Athletic Truth Group or ATG, and that's
ATG.
Ben Patrick and Keegan Smith from Real Movement Project. Real Movement. I don't think it's Project Real Movement.
Real movement.
It was Real Movement Project at one point, I think.
And literally, and that's just one. But you've also worked with a gamut of other coaches
Yeah.
as well, and I'm sure you've learnt things from people like the OGs of
Yeah.
CrossFit, like Carl Paoli. And
Yeah, Carl, literally me and my brother were talking about this the other day. Like, I did a gymnastics workshop at Breakthrough Fitness 3 weeks ago. Almost every single one of my gymnastics progressions for kipping was
Carl.
Carl's.
Right.
Carl is, and we were talking about how CrossFit San Francisco shutting down was such a sad thing, because to me, CrossFit San Francisco was like a pillar of the CrossFit community. It was the
No,
mecca.
that's not Kelly.
Yeah, it was Kelly.
That's
yeah,
Kelly
Kelly
Starrett's gym.
Kelly
Yeah.
Starrett's gym. So I went when I was then going to the Grid League Las Vegas thing. I went to San Francisco first, and I actually went to meet Kelly Carl wasn't there. I saw Diane Fu. Yeah, there were these people who were like the thought leaders in the CrossFit community, and to see like that kind of shutting down was a bit of a sad day the other week.
And this is the lesson that I want to impart here for people that are listening. And if you've got athletic endeavors, or you're treating athletes and whatnot, if you're an athlete and you are not doing your own research and you are putting just complete trust in just one person, you've already you're letting yourself down. Like the way that Scotty has been able to work through a lot of his injuries that I've been a part of. Like I've been a part of every single one of these from 2015, and it's like, but I haven't solved them all, and nor am I going to take credit for solving everything completely. Yeah, it's like, I know that
you've definitely played a massive part in them all.
Sure, but at the same time, like the wrist. Like there's the shoulder, I would have got some of these 80% there, some of them 10% there. The knee, I might have been 50% of it.
I'd say the knee was all you.
Okay, fair enough.
I honestly, I was bad with my rehab on that. I didn't do much of the rehab. Right. I remember the treatment being getting the treatment and squatting like the next couple of days later and having no knee pain.
Right,
I can squat.
So I'll take that one. But then even then, it's kind of like
that was, to me, that was what built our relationship. The trust in you. It was you were able to resolve a problem that I'd had for years and had surgery on, which I'd went and seen someone and put my trust in them, and eventually got under the knife because they told me to. Yeah. And it didn't fix the problem.
Yeah. So if I hadn't done what I needed to do with the knee, either you would have found someone else, or you would have. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows how important that was, right? Yeah. So the point is that there are, and it's not about accrediting or attributing progress percentage-wise or whatever. It's more like, no. As an athlete, you need multiple sources of information all the time. This goes with your nutrition. This goes with your psychology. This goes with your physical capabilities, your injuries, your everything needs to be consulted if you want to be an athlete. And I don't. It's the difference between you and then people that just simply don't make it, or they just die trying. Yeah. And so I've made a list here, so we'll put that up. But I've got a question for you. What have your injuries taught you about yourself?
No matter how dark the situation may seem, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay. So it's like, don't give up hope.
Don't give up hope. Just because you feel broken and irreparable and damaged, that does not define you. You can fucking, like the butterfly, come out of the cocoon and rise and be beautiful and strong again. Yeah. I've had I'll tell you my thing. My thing is my 5 Ps. You got to have potential. You got to have the right people. You got to have passion. You got to have perseverance, and you got to have a process. So they're my 5 things for success.
I love that. Far out.
The perseverance thing is
you better copyright that shit.
That's balance health and performance.
That's
making a difference to people's lives
today.
5 Ps.
But the perseverance to go through those testing times, those troubled times, and still know that they're you are going to be a healthier, happier version of yourself afterwards. I honestly didn't think I would be at the Commonwealth Games when I had my shoulder injury. Yeah. But then I got there.
Yeah.
Do you think though, so that point where, you say how the butterfly and the cocoon, or the end point, do you think I don't think that's injury free though, is it?
No, I still have the scars. I still have the stars, and
I don't think
which is important for people to know as well, because I think there's this unrealistic expectation that there's this holy grail of being injury free.
I don't think I've ever helped you go into a comp completely scratch free. No way.
Well, let's get to 2017 Commonwealth Games. So I leave my high paying job. Yeah. I open up my gym. And fuck, that was challenging. Yeah. I was shitting my pants the whole fucking time. And to get to the end quickly, guys, I did shut my business down in 2019 before COVID.
3 months before COVID.
Yeah, thank you. I am Nostradamus now. I am the fortune teller.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. And part of me opening the gym was from you, Nick. You were a strong motivation there, and you pushed me to do it, and you're like, you're ready for it, go and do it. It wasn't the right decision looking back, but it taught me a lot about myself. But yeah, I opened up my own gym. I went from being paid well to earning nothing, zero. But I was happier than ever. And I was enjoying training. I was injury free, and I was getting better every week. Like my minimums, the lowest weight I was hitting on a weekly basis was getting higher and higher and higher. I was doing things that I'd never done before. And I went into the Commonwealth Championships, which is the qualifying event for the Commonwealth Games in September 2017. Like, I felt like I was at the fucking juggernaut. I could run through brick walls. I was strong. I was powerful. I was fit. I was healthy. I was happy. And then I didn't do the performance that I wanted to, and that
at the games,
at the Commonwealth Championships, and that took a big knock on my mental health and capacity. I was a bit like, fuck, don't feel as good about myself. And I had a back injury. And then I pissed my knee off. That was when the gapping kind of started. And I actually thought about this the other day. You know when my gapping started? When I wear knee sleeves. When I wore knee sleeves. I can remember it specifically. You know when we had the discussion in the room the other day? I'm like, fuck. I just remembered now. My gapping started when I was trying to front squat, but I was wearing knee sleeves. Yeah. But when I wore knee wraps, it didn't gap. So that's just a thing, just for Nick.
I'll let that percolate.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, we went to Commonwealth Championships. I snatched 143 kilos, which is a PR snatch opener. Clean and jerked 170. It was my worst competition to date ever. I made 2 lifts. 2 lifts out of 6. Yeah. But I did enough to get on the team. Yeah. I was on the team, and going into the Commonwealth Games, I was very unmotivated. I'd actually say when I got the call or got the email to say that I'd made the games, I was actually probably depressed. I had went from the highest of the highs to not feeling very good about myself, and really going to the Commonwealth Games. The couple of months before the games, I remembered that why I was doing what I was doing. This was me to prove to myself that I am capable whatever the fuck I put my mind to, and not to depend on anyone else to make me successful or not. So I really pulled myself up by the bootstraps sort of thing, gave myself a kick up the arse, and ended up doing well at the games. But if you looked at my preparation, compared that to the Commonwealth Championships, I was a shell of my former self. Right. I was not who I was the year before. As a person and as an athlete.
Why?
Just because I just didn't have the belief. But then when my brother flew over from Scotland to come watch me compete at the Commonwealth Games, I was not going to disappoint him. And I know they were proud of me because I'd qualified, and that was almost like the mountain itself. I got to the top of the mountain, which was a qualification, and then there's actually another peak that I need to hit now. It was a false peak. So yeah, but about 2 months away from the games, that was when I really kicked myself into overdrive and started really mentally preparing myself. But that whole point from September 2017 till May, what did I compete in April? Yeah, so March, January, February, that whole period was a very dark spot.
Right. You were coachless at this point.
Yeah, I was coachless.
And you're 6 months out from the Com Games.
Yeah, less than that.
Yeah. And you had been running your gym now for
close to a year. Close to a year.
So you had some real life stress too at the time.
Yeah. There was just a lot of things on my plate.
Yeah. So I think this is interesting, right? You were unhappy where you were working
before my last job.
Correct. Yeah. And did that affect your performance?
Oh, definitely. It bled into all areas of my life.
I've got a question for you. Would you have qualified for the Commonwealth Games if you did not have the opportunity to train at your gym in the environment that you could control?
I'm not sure. Probably not. But I think back and I'm I probably, even though opening up my own business maybe cost me certain aspects of that opportunity, it actually made the opportunity itself. If I had not done it, I don't think I would have went to the games.
There's nothing that happens that doesn't have some sort of pro and con.
Yeah.
And it's I've said to you before that I don't like. I know when you closed your gym, I was like, "That's not a failure, man."
No, it wasn't.
Like that's like a. There have been so many successes along the way, and you've even told me yourself that you're a better employee now because of that.
I remember one of the first chats I had with you. You told me that you see yourself as more a technician than you do.
And it's like the year of the first year of business, and then it just allows you to have this positive environment when the environment before was not favorable.
Sure.
But then all the problems crept in, didn't they?
Yeah.
So
well, you realize after the first year of business, when you earn no money, you're like, well, fuck, this needs to turn around. Otherwise, we're not gonna make it. My wife I love my wife to death. Like, I'm such a fortunate person that she was there to financially, emotionally, psychologically support me through opening a business, supporting me financially so I had food on the table. Helping me get to the Commonwealth Games, marrying me. I got married in the October of 2017, so after the Commonwealth Championships, and I really enjoyed my wedding.
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed my wedding.
That was a good time.
Yeah. But I didn't really. I
had the pleasure of being there, which was wonderful to see.
Yeah, she definitely. Yeah, I'm a very lucky man. Just put it that way. If it wasn't for her, I don't think I would have achieved fucking 1/2 of what I've done.
Yeah. In many aspects. Like, it sounds like there's a lot of people that have got around you, but especially your wife.
Yeah.
Like,
what's super interesting, right? And what I know made a little note because you said something before. At the very beginning of the podcast, you said, "I didn't have the chance for the coaches." The coaches weren't there to make me do what I was capable of.
Yeah.
And then you said something just before where you wanted to prove to yourself that you could do it and not necessarily be dependent on anyone.
Someone. Yeah.
Are those two thought processes related?
I believe so. So I had the 5 Ps. I had the potential.
Yeah.
I had the passion for rugby. I loved rugby at one point.
Yeah.
I had the perseverance. I had injuries during rugby.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the process and didn't have the people. The people and the process are the two things that connect.
Awesome.
But the other 3 things were my things. They were me.
Yes.
Passion, potential, passion, and perseverance, they're me.
Yep.
They're controllable by
they're
me.
internal, yeah.
The other 2 were dependent on other people. Now, having done the wrist preparation work, having done the bicep oblique shoulder opener, having created what I call the grease the groove system for weightlifting, I now have the process. And I am the right person for getting to the Commonwealth Games because I've been there.
Yes.
So I am now the perfect coach for anyone who wants to go to the Commonwealth Games.
Yes.
Because I have been there and I have got the T-shirt. I know what it takes.
Yeah.
I have the process, and because I'm the person, I can. What's the word I'm looking for? Because I've been there and I've got the experience. I know the things to do, the right things to do, the people to talk to. Yeah, not legitimizes me, but it's more like my first weightlifting coach. He taught me before I'd even got to the Commonwealth Games. He taught me he made me feel what it was going to feel like when I was on my first weightlifting competition. Like. If you've
positioned you as a mentor, you've walked the path.
If you've never been on the platform, there's nothing that can gain that experience for you. So, but having a coach with the right experience and knowing what it actually feels like can kind of replicate that for you before you get there. So you the prediction is like you already know what it's going to feel like.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's the person, that's the people, that's the coach. The perseverance, like you can't teach perseverance. Either you got grit or you don't. There was Angela Duckworth, Grit. Like I love that book's really good. I love that book if you haven't read it. But basically, like if you do not have the ability to take the knocks and fucking fight those uphill battles, you're not gonna. You're not gonna.
That's massive, mate. I love those 5 Ps.
It is beautiful.
That gives good insight into like why people just don't succeed in whatever area it is, but especially athletic pursuits.
However, there was something you said that without your wife.
Yeah.
So it's not in a coach because you've been coachless for a while.
Yeah, I consider myself a self-coach athlete.
Yeah.
I've had mentors and I've had people who have helped me along the way, but I still consider 99% of my training has been done by myself.
100%.
Without anyone there watching me.
However, you have had, that's correct. You've had people around you.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you can. Do you think it's possible for an athlete to do it 100% on their own?
No. So I when I first moved to Sydney, I called it my network of success. Well, Christine, I think it was network of success, some of this. I remember going back and reading it a while ago. But you were one of them. My wife was one of them. My family, my brother. My brother was a talented athlete as well, but he never had someone to look up to and aspire to. So my brother is like me going to the Commonwealth Games, like Commonwealth Championships. I think it's my second snatch. I listened to Kanye West, Big Brother. Yeah. And that song just
awesome.
Fucking just
that's cool,
that got me in the fucking zone. Because I snatched 143 and I was going out for 147.
Right.
And then I did the same thing for I missed my 175 kilo clean and jerk, my second clean and jerk, because I had like a 10-minute window between my first clean and jerk and my second one, which is a long wait in weightlifting. Yeah. And then going out for the second one, I put Big Brother on again. And I missed it, but like that song and thinking of my brother got me way further.
What did you end up snatching at the Com Games?
Com Games one's 140.
Yeah.
And I clean and jerked to PR, which was 171. Yeah. Which like to me was like, that was... The fact that I did that to me was just like, yeah.
That was your backflip.
That was a backflip. That was. And
what was your result at the Com Games?
Finished 7th. So awesome. I went in ranked 9th. Yeah. And I finished 7th. I think I was the only Scottish weightlifter to improve their position.
Yeah.
So and
it's just a different. It's like caliber of athletes, man.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It was
different
nuts.
to you and I know.
Yeah.
Yes, Jack. very different to you and I.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, Scotty. So. Why don't we dive into like a little bit of gym ownership now? So you owned Soar Athletic for how long?
3 years.
Just
under 3 years.
That went quick. Wow.
If you had any lessons, or if you had to, if someone is thinking about getting into gym ownership, what would you tell them?
So I think, and especially when it comes to like gym ownership, and you said you made mention that it was the wrong decision.
It was the wrong decision. People. So I got into gym ownership because I wanted to help people. I wanted to have control. But you can help people and have control if you find the right business owner or the right entrepreneur. You can build a relationship.
That's an employer.
I've since started working at a gym called Breakthrough Fitness in Maryland, and George, the owner there, is a great boss, and I have gone to him and I've showed him that I have the capabilities to run a CrossFit functional fitness program, and I can shape it, and I can shape the program, and I can change things and influence the culture. If I had found a George, and I had these opportunities, I'm saying, at other gyms like Lift Performance Center, I ran the weightlifting club initially. Heights Barbell Club, I was the weightlifting coach. But those roles, they restricted my growth because I was a weightlifting coach. I was not a functional fitness coach. A functional fitness coach can do whatever the fuck they want.
Yes.
But a weightlifting coach has to weightlift. Yes. And that's what I didn't like. So I went and opened up Soar because I wanted to do what I thought was the best thing for people's health and fitness. I have experienced strength conditioning, CrossFit, weightlifting, gymnastic style training, strongman style training. I wanted to use rugby. I wanted to use all the tools in my toolbox, but I was a hammer, i.e. a weightlifting coach at these gyms, and they didn't allow me the growth that I needed. And I felt restricted in my duties because I was stepping on other people's toes because I was trying to coach people through CrossFit workouts. Not that I wanted to be a CrossFit coach. I didn't want to coach CrossFit classes. I just wanted to help certain people who wanted to do CrossFit. I just wanted to be a coach. And I was restricted in that. So I went and opened up Soar, and I realized that, and you mentioned it before, like the technician. There's a book called The E-Myth. You've got technicians, you've got entrepreneurs, you've got managers. Technicians are coaches, chiropractors, CrossFit coaches, weightlifting coaches, anything. Anyone who's good at a chef is a technician. Then they see an opportunity, or they think they can go and do it better for themselves, and they take on the entrepreneurial and the managerial hats. But what ends up happening is it actually detracts from your ability to be the best technician or the best chef, cook, coach, whatever the fuck you want to be. So that's what happened to me. My fire and passion for coaching got doused because I had to become an entrepreneur and a manager. Luckily for me, my wife did most of the managerial stuff. She did most of the back end stuff. But having to go out and find business and drum up business is not what I enjoy. I don't mind going out and meeting people, but putting up Facebook ads and cold calling people is not enjoyable.
You like being on the floor?
I
and
like
working
being
with
on the
people,
floor and working with people who want to be there.
Which you can do as an employee.
Which I can do as an employee.
And probably earn more money.
And definitely earn a lot more money.
So what did it, I suppose, how did it make you a better person now?
Having owned a business, I can empathize with business owners because I know what they're going through. I can see I've seen what happens when you put your life savings into a business and everything depends on this business being successful. I am very, 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 very lucky because I had a financially supportive wife and we were in a good financial position. My wife's a financial advisor, so any decision we make is well calculated.
Sure.
And I also have supportive parents. So I shut down SOAR with nothing, but I came out with 0 from SOAR, but the experience and the knowledge that I've gained has been invaluable. As I said, I am a much better employee. I understand what George is going through, and I can understand that the actions that I take whilst conducting my classes has not just an impact on me, but also him. And if I make the wrong decisions, or if I speak to someone in the wrong way, or if I say something and that person leaves, yes, it won't impact me immediately because he's not going to cut my hours straight away, but it's going to impact me in the long term. So I can see the long-term effects of my actions.
Is that something that you feel like, so that's something that, can you contrast Scot Wilson before SOAR?
Yeah. I used to say and think and do whatever I wanted to do. I did not give any consideration for.
But then when you look at your history, you grew up in the army.
Yeah.
Like your first 5 years of brain development was structured in such a way which was not really exposed to too much outside of that.
No.
Yeah.
I
with an authoritarian, and it's like,
of course that's how I.
Of course that's how you are.
Yeah.
Has that, so obviously another part of your story is like you're also a new father.
Yeah.
With fatherhood and with your upbringing, how have things shaped how you're now raising your son?
Well, I go back to my 5 Ps.
Sure.
I am the person who's responsible for developing and growing my son. I was never forced to do sports as a kid, so I'm not going to force Oliver to do sports as a kid, but I'm going to give him every opportunity that I can based off of what I know. So early on, while he was an infant and immobile, I tried to do neck strengthening exercise with him. I tried to get him to touch his toes. I tried to get him to hold his feet. I tried to move his body in a way that he increase his work capacity and his capabilities, so that he will have opportunities later on in life.
Now that can be interpreted as you've passively forced it.
Yeah.
But can you give us an example of like an exercise that you would give him for neck strengthening?
So I would literally hold him lying on my arm with his head like rested on my hand, and then I would slowly take my hand away and try and get him to like support his neck up.
That's
without
it.
Him.
Right.
Just passively, isometrics.
What I see happen, and I'm not a father, right?
Yeah.
But what I see happen a lot is people, they like with tummy time. To give you an example, you hear the baby crying and that they've had enough.
Yeah.
No. That's just
them
fatigue.
struggling.
That's just fatigue.
Yeah.
And
they don't know how to deal with it.
And a concept that their only way of changing the world around them is by crying. They cry, they get fed. They cry, they get their ass wiped. They cry, whatever, they get cuddled. So that is their way of changing the world.
When I cry, I get told to shut up.
Yeah, that's it. So one of the things I realized, one of the things I learned on...
No, I don't get my ass wiped. That would be weird. It would probably make me cry more.
Yeah, that's right. I might find that a bit weird.
Stop it, cat.
So, like but something that, like, when I'm coaching people, if you can't do a push-up on the floor, let's do it on an incline. If you can't do a ring row with your body parallel to the floor, let's change the angle so it's easier. So rather than forcing Oliver to do tummy time, I just used to lie down and put his shoulders and his chest on my chest and his feet on the floor, so he's at an angle. And now he's got a lot more leverage and strength to hold himself up.
Oh, it's like you've regressed it.
I've regressed it. I regressed tummy time. And you know what?
That's hectic.
He never cried. He never cried doing that. He
Really?
loved it. He loved
Oh.
it. I remember the first video.
It wasn't too hard, in
It
other
wasn't
words.
too hard. It wasn't a super challenge. But then I still gave him actual tummy time.
Yes.
I would also hold him.
Just progressive overload.
Yeah, basically, I would hold him with his chest on the couch, and I would support his head, and I would lift his head up, and then I would try to take my hand away and get him to just do the negative.
Yeah, we're just doing. What are we doing?
just setting him up.
GHD.
Just setting him up for success.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just trying to give him the opportunities that my mum was like, "You're cruel." I'm like, "No, I'm not. He's not crying. He's not upset. He's enjoying it."
And
He's
I guess-
actually, and I've seen videos
Yeah.
of you with Oliver, and he's laughing.
He's laughing. He loves it. He used to love it.
And I guess when they're that age in their first year, that's the only thing they understand is
Yeah.
the physical world and what's happening around them as well. And that's one way you can influence them,
Yeah.
early on. I love that.
And then like going back to like my parents never forced me to do anything, so I'm not going to force him to do anything that he doesn't want to do.
Sure.
We've put him into swimming lessons at 6. He was 7.5 months when we put him into swimming lessons. He's almost finished his first term. He is ahead of schedule, put it that way.
Yes.
The coach is like, he's splashing his hands by his own. He's kicking his legs a little bit. He's doing things that kids in the class who are 2 years old can't do. But he's being exposed to it from an earlier age. So I'm giving him opportunities. That being said, like I've spoke about my father a little bit. My dad was not an unloving father, but didn't shower me with praise and the affection that I would like. I am trying to do that. So I've read books like Unconditional Parenting and tried to make myself as aware of my own shit and my own fallacies and my own lenses and perspectives so that I don't push that onto him as much as I would. Yeah, as much as I want to. I want him to grow up, and I want to give him good perspectives, but I also don't want him to take on my burdens and my shit. Because I know my dad didn't have a good relationship with his parents, and I'm sure that manifests in his way of...
You've tried to cut through the pattern.
Yeah, try to break the cycle. And who knows, maybe I'll ruin him. Maybe he'll become a
When did you
notice?
When did you realize, like, was there a moment where you looked at yourself and you were like, I need to change myself?
Yeah. Post Commonwealth Games, I returned to my gym, and I was still like, Julian's got this concept, this phylogenetic hierarchy: flow, fight, flight, freeze. Weightlifting, very lactate-based training, high stimulus. It's on the fight-flight response. So you're in the sympathetic. I used to finish training, and then go straight into coaching. And that's coaching social. Like you should be in a flow state, not in a fight-flight state.
That's true.
So how I'm already an authoritative or very like direct person. I'm going to be even more so.
Yes.
So post Commonwealth Games, despite having the relief and the stress relief of not having to compete at Commonwealth Games, I came back and I blew up at a long-term member who'd been with me for multiple years. She left. I didn't care.
Wow.
But I had another lady who I'd had the same sort of interaction with, who's a big Islander girl, tell me that I made her feel like she was this big, tiny.
Yeah.
And the fact that she came up and said that to my face rather than going to my wife and saying, Scott's a dick, can you tell him to stop being a dick? She actually came up to me and had that really stark, honest conversation with me. Like, I remember almost like crying in front of her, like, well, I did partially, like, had tears down my eyes, but not bawling my eyes out. So that was like, I was aware that I needed to change, but her having that conversation with me made me like, just, it made it real, tangible. Like I could feel it. I can remember, even now I can feel the way that I felt in that moment.
Wow.
From there, I went and worked with a professional coach. Nice. And had some experiences that I can't mention.
Okay.
For legal reasons.
Yeah.
Had some experiences that made me a more empathetic person.
So we had some altering experiences?
Yes.
Some altered experiences.
Yes.
Away from our current perceived reality.
So, yeah.
I hope that was confusing enough for everyone.
What I'd call a non-ordinary state of consciousness.
Okay, that's nice. I like that. Yeah.
I think a non-ordinary. I went into
extraordinary.
If you haven't figured it out by now.
Yeah.
Beyond ordinary.
So I did that, and I did that in a very supportive environment, and that doesn't just change who you are, although it did make a big impact on how I perceived myself and how I perceived the people around me. But it's still ongoing. I still have to be mindful. Like there's a theme. Every gym I go to, I ruffle a lot of feathers because again, very authoritative and very like, this is the way, you have to do it this way. That was not a Mandalorian quote, although you could have it that way too. But yeah, so every gym I go to, I run into the same problems. I butt heads with people. But when people really get to know me, they realize that I care more than all the other coaches, because like, I genuinely do. I care more than they do a lot of the times about their own success and them achieving the things that they say they want to do. Where I fall into problems is like, again, I get on that anxious sort of side of things where I'm like I'm not in a flow state anymore. I get overwhelmed because there's a lot of people around me and it's loud and people are dropping barbells and almost killing themselves. And as a CrossFit coach, that can be quite stressful.
Yep.
And I'm a pretty like high strung person as it is. So what I've done is I've learned to slow down, breathe, take a few breaths and go, right, this person is trying their best. They're obviously not trying to piss me off. They're not trying to hurt themselves or anyone around them, and see them for who they are. I look at my son and he's a ball of light, and I try to think of Nick as that ball of light. You are someone's son. You are someone's child.
Oh, wow.
And you were a child at one point, and you are just trying your best. You're trying to navigate this world as best you can. So cut you some slack. I don't know what you're going through in your everyday life, and that's hard to do on a daily basis. I have to remind myself constantly of this. So every day when I get to the gym, before I go to the gym, if I'm not running late, which is not that often, but sometimes traffic and all that sort of stuff, I take a few seconds and I just sit there and I just, in my mind, I'm like, just chill.
Yeah.
I used to have a mantra, but I don't really like mantras. I'm not. It didn't really
There's
work
a massive
for me.
lesson there.
It's
Yeah.
just like sitting there and just taking that moment to go, right, you're going to go and try and help people.
Yeah.
You are not your most productive self if you're shouting at them.
Yeah.
You are not helping them help them. You're not helping them get better if you're shouting at them.
I know, yeah, I can definitely resonate with that. Like, and I know probably Nick as well, like, just having, and Nick and I have had this conversation, but like being able to control your intensity when it's needed.
Yeah.
Because
It's hard.
Yeah, 100% it is. Like, same with me. Like, my default mode is pretty intense sometimes, and you just have to pick your moments and pick your times, because it can be very counterproductive. And it sounds like you've learnt to control that in yourself.
It's still ongoing.
And that's a great lesson. That's a great lesson you'll teach your son one day.
Yeah, well, that's my hope. Like, my dad flies off the wall. Like,
Sure.
it's like you have to walk on eggshells around my dad, and I don't want people to perceive me in that way either. So,
it's what I'm absolutely in awe of is the fact that you are born talented and gifted in sport.
yeah,
And although like you've had some misfortune along the way, and you've had some, and with that misfortune I mean, you know, you've been let down in certain ways. Not only were you, a lot of it I believe seems to, like at the very beginning of your life, like you were basically like structured and regimented and disciplined from the beginning. And not only that, you because you had such a variety and ever-changing environment around you, the environment affects you.
yeah,
And so, and the environment affects everyone, but some people will be more sensitive to it than others. So what I can see is you've had this very structured start, and then like you said, you lived in 5 German cities.
yeah, 5 different places
By the age of 13.
Yeah,
And so really, like, who knows how your growth and development would have changed depending on the city.
yeah,
To then go to Scotland and then compete, and then like, you know, you get set in a particular environment, but then get let down by something that kept you safe, which was your coach.
yeah,
And you trusted that person. And it's like, this is an emotional roller coaster.
yeah,
And so you have to default to what keeps things strict and controlled, and that's authoritarian attitudes.
yeah,
You have to, because then how are you going to manage the uncertainty, and how are you going to manage what you can't control, the things that are around you? You have to do that by asserting control. Not only that, probably part of that was you're probably trying to be the coach you wish you had.
yeah,
And so, but then that interpretation to other people, because they haven't had your experience, is misconstrued.
Like, this guy's a dick.
This guy's a dick. So we're talking about from 0 to 25 25, 28.
28,
Well, 27 with that big moment
Yeah.
where your member came up to you.
Yeah.
It was however long that is. You've had 20 odd years of conditioning.
Yeah.
That's like learning how to, hit a tennis ball for 27 years in one particular way.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to revert back to your default. So all I can do is applaud you, bro.
Thank you.
For sure. Well, Scotty, it's been a pleasure, mate. It's
Thank you.
I think it's been awesome to, like Nico said, just go from the start and figure out where you came from and what's made you into the great athlete and the great coach you are today. So, thank you for your time, mate.
Before you go, is there anything that you want to say to anyone who's planning on entering weightlifting?
Find the right person. Like I'm available. If people want to talk to me, I'm happy to tell them the path that I've gone down. But again, if you don't have the passion and the perseverance, it's the wrong sport.
And
for
the
you.
5 P,
And
really the 5 Ps.
If you don't have the 5 Ps, like you can go into weightlifting and compete, but
The 6th
if
P is piss off.
yeah. No, my 6th P is potatoes. Potatoes are pretty essential. I like me some potatoes. But yeah, if you're looking to get into weightlifting, ask yourself, why are you doing it? Like if you're just doing it for a physical pursuit, I think it's a great sport. It's very safe. If you do it properly, it's very safe. If it's done poorly, it's going to be detrimental to your health. I know lots of people who are ruined because they've not trained well.
Sure.
And they've not gone about it in a very smart way, like me included. My body I do hold the battle scars. I still have a bad hip, a bad knee, a bad shoulder, but they don't define me. I'm still capable of doing things, and I will still do things in the future. So yeah, if you want to get into weightlifting, find the right find a person who's in your area, the people, the coach who can help make that path as smooth as possible.
I definitely believe that if anyone does reach out on the back of this, or if anyone, for you, it's more than just, I'm going to coach you weightlifting and you're going to learn the technique.
Yeah,
it's actually, they'd be looking for a mentor.
Yeah, I'm not a weightlifting coach.
No.
I consider myself just a coach. Like I got a girl at the gym that I work at. She's got crippling anxiety, but over the last 2 months of us working together, we've been able to back that off, and she's slowly reducing her medication.
Yes.
And she's happier than she's been in a very long time.
And
that's the power of training, and that's the power of like the mindset and
most definitely
having someone directing you. Before that, everyone around her was enabling her to go further and further into that path of anxiety and eventually depression.
Right. So basically, it sounds like anyone who's wanting to improve
Just
body,
overall.
mind, all that. So
You have to, as Nick said,
Much more
it's
wholesome.
it's omnipresent in a sense. You got to do everything. You can't just do one thing.
sure, definitely.
Scotty, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys.
Awesome, mate. Thank you.